Well, it's time for Arts Now, and today we have an extraordinary story to start our arts conversation. Now, this is a story about a singer who was kidnapped and held for ransom, and he sings about what happened to him. It's quite an extraordinary story. Now, he does say that what happened to him, the kidnapping, being held for ransom, doesn't define him as a person or a performer, but it has had a strong impact on him, his music, and his approach to life, as you might expect. Tim Knowles is the performer. He's in the studio with us now. Thanks very much for joining us, Tim.
That's all right, Phil.
Let's start with the kidnapping. Tell us what happened.
The situation was I was living with a friend of mine, or I was renting, I should say, a room with a friend of mine who was quite a wealthy and sort of well-known jeweller over in the UK. And he obviously, being a jeweller, attracted the attention of the wrong people.
This is in the UK?
This is in the UK, yeah. We were living in Surrey, just south of London. And a group of people obviously took it upon themselves to attack and try and rob Mark at his house, and because I was living there, they thought I was his son or a family member of some sort, I guess, and so they stormed the house one evening and took both of us, and took me separately to another place to hold me for ransom.
Mark must have been saying he is not a relative of mine or something?
Yeah, he was, yeah. As much as we could. I mean, there wasn't much chance to converse with him in the beginning. It was a lot more just threats and demands and things, but obviously we tried to explain that to them, also explain that, certain demands that they were making couldn't be met at all. But obviously in that kind of high intensity, you're not always taken seriously.
Yeah, sure. Who were these people?
We still don't know.
Were they masked?
They were masked. Throughout the whole ordeal, I never saw them. They were completely masked and covered in gloves and.
So they knew what they were doing.
Well, they were very professional. It was clear the minute they sort of came in that it was quite a serious, planned out job, I guess.
How did they treat you?
It's an interesting question. I mean, not very well. The situation as it is not a nice thing. But having said that, I wasn't too physically hurt. Obviously, threats and things are made, and at the time, it's not a very nice situation to be in. But you also hear a lot of other stories about people that are a lot worse off, and so I would say that no, I wouldn't say they treated us nicely, but I'd say it could have been worse. When
you say threats were made, did they at any stage threaten to kill you?
Oh, absolutely, yeah, right from the sort of first moment.
Did you think you were going to die at any stage?
I did. I found what happened to me was the first say 5 minutes. Your head, or my head in this case, did a crazy amount of thinking and rationalising and trying to figure out what was going on and what was going to happen and what could happen, all these sorts of thoughts all at once. And then all of a sudden there was just extreme quiet in my head, and I got to a point where I thought, okay, this could be happening, and if that is going to happen, if it is the end, so to speak, there's not a lot you can do about it in that situation. So that's actually a calming thought. Not that I'm suggesting that I wanted to sort of die or anything, but it is a calming thing that I think the mind does, that just stop that onslaught of thought that you're having.
Did you get to the stages of being furious about it? The fact that these people have interrupted your life, you've got family, you've got a life, that these people have taken control of your life?
I think at the time, fury didn't come into it. There was no anger or anything like that. At the time, I think I was in survival mode, so it was just about being as calm and responsible as possible, and going along with anything they wanted to do. There was none of that kind of those emotions coming up. I think a lot of that happened afterwards, once everything had died down and we were free and all that sort of thing, I think then those sorts of emotions, the real anger and the sadness and the blame and all that sort of thing starts coming out. Yeah.
I'll ask you a bit later if you've dealt with all of those issues. How long did they hold you, though?
I was held for about 14 hours. It was purely because they came in on the Monday night, but they wanted to gain access to one of Mark's jewellery shops, which obviously they had to wait till the next morning. So I was held as a keepsafe that he would not go to the police or anyone in that time until the shop was open and they could get into the safe and carry out what they wanted to do. So,
did they do things like feed you? Did that, the whole thing? Did they look after you in that way? Did you get food, water?
No food. We got water. We got a couple of things. I mean, although I didn't see these people, they do after that, spending that amount of time with people. Even though we were blindfolded and things like that. So you do start to give each one of them personalities and characters. And there was one of the group seemed to be the nicer one, I would say, in terms of making sure we were comfortable and sort of telling us that nothing needs to go wrong as long as they get what they want. Whereas a couple of the other groups, members of the group, were a bit more
bad cop.
Yeah, that's a good way of putting it. Yeah.
All right, so you got out of this. How was it related to you that you actually got out of it? What was it? They said, "Yeah, we got what you want," and how did they release you?
Well, the next morning, I was actually taken into a sort of wooded area, which there is a lot of in Surrey, and I was to be held there, where sort of all the awful stuff was happening, of a hole being dug and all this sort of stuff. And the people that were with me were waiting on a phone call from somebody who was with Mark at his shop to say either, it had gone well, in which case to leave me there, or it had gone bad, in which case to also leave me there, but not so alive. So as it happens, being a wooded area is actually a stroke of luck that because we were in the woods, there was no phone signal. So this phone call that we were all waiting on never came because of phone signal. So they actually panicked and left.
And left you?
Yeah, and left me, fortunately, very fortunately.
They left you alive?
Yeah.
Well, clearly. Yeah. So my next question was going to be, just as you were talking there, do you believe that they would have killed you if they didn't get the money? But clearly, then if they got that, since they left you alive, do you believe if they got that call that said, no, it's all gone wrong, do you think that they would have killed you now in retrospect?
Yeah, I think they probably would have. I think if I was going to die, it would have come at a different time to that, though. I think it would have come from sort of one of them being stressed out or panicky, and that's when sort of a mistake would have been made. I don't know that I, looking back, think that they had it in them to actually sort of cold-blooded, just
did they sound
out of
young,
spite.
did they?
But having said that, I mean, at the time, that doesn't enter your head. Yeah.
Were they young?
From what I could tell, yeah, they weren't. Yeah, I'd say they were late 20s at the most.
Yeah. All right. Now, you are an artist. You obviously were performing before this happened.
Absolutely.
You've been performing. So how has it changed your performance? Because you are a guitarist singer. So how has it changed you?
I mean, the impact it has on your personal life when you go through, well, at least mine, the way I responded to it didn't blend well at all with my creative side, so to speak. Things like this numbing that you do when you go through a trauma, and even things like substance abuse, whether it be smoking cigarettes or drinking, or all these things you do as a coping mechanism, are absolutely venomous to being an artist, especially a performer on stage and things. So, I mean, that side of it was affected incredibly, but also the creative side of songwriting initially was just completely gone.
How long ago was this, by the way?
It was about 6-7 months ago.
Okay.
So, and not only that, I mean, I packed up and came back to Australia, just as a way of sort of seeing family and getting my head clear and all that sort of thing. So there was huge disruption to my life as it was. It wasn't just the night of. It was this huge turmoil in everything. So it affected the performance in every sort of way, I guess. Definitely the songwriting was affected initially. And then also just the confidence and the drive disappears a little bit because I'd spent so long gathering momentum in the music industry in the UK. Now that I was whisked back home to Australia, where I'm sort of relatively unknown and all that sort of thing, I felt a lot like I was starting from scratch, and that was quite infuriating. That was something I got angry at them about, was the fact that they'd disrupted this ongoing momentum I was trying to build up over there. So,
do you ever think that it's only been 6 months? I mean, you are still in the middle of your recovery process. You know, it will take some time. Do you feel like, you still feel like that the recovery is still ongoing?
I do, but I feel like it's very much going in the right direction. I think the worst part is out of the way. But the other problem is, as an artist, you're incredibly sensitive to things like this, and your mind tells you this is great. You know, we can write songs about this. But I was in such a bad place initially that you can't even think about that kind of thing. You just got to get yourself. I think it's important as well not to stress out about materialistic things and things like, you know, where my position was and feeding my ego with things like that. I think the most important thing is just to nurture yourself and make sure you survived
and you went through something that very few people have had to go through. Have you written, because you brought your guitar in, have you got anything that you've got for us that actually relates to what happened to you? Or
nothing that I would say is at a point to be played yet.
Okay.
Only because a lot of that is it's still very hard to write an actual
piece about
it because it's still quite up there. So I've found that my songwriting has benefited in every other way. Right, I can write songs about just about anything again. But when I sit down and try and write about that sort of specific stuff, it's still a little bit fresh.
Have you found like it's opened your mind a little bit? It's clarified you?
Absolutely, yeah. And it's forced me to be very healthy and in every way, mentally and physically. And
you look very fit. You look,
it's forced me to get right back on track, which then in turn opens up all these other things. So the creative flow is definitely there. I think it's the same as I've written great songs about relationship breakups and things, but I tend to not write them too soon afterwards because you don't have a lot of control over what comes out. So.
That's right. It could be quite nasty. Like there's a few girl bands too, the McClymonts, who wrote an album about guy breakups, and I hate these guys.
Yeah, you don't want to do it too soon afterwards.
No, you don't. All right. Well, Tim Knowles, I think everybody wants to hear what you've got. So, look, what have you got for us to play?
I might play a little song called Hey Betty.
Hey Betty.
That I wrote a little while ago.
And in a beautiful thing of planning, we've got your guitar on the other side of the studio over there, so we'll let you go and grab the guitar and do that and set up for it. Okay. Hey Betty, and Tim Knowles is our guest on our Arts Conversation, although it hasn't been very artistic so far, but there is a relationship there about this extraordinary story of Tim Knowles. This is Tim Knowles with Hey Betty.
Thank you.
Up in your hair, you figure about what you wear your favorite jeans, you put on a freshly ironed shirt, when she zips up her skirt, you both change 4 or 5 times before you get it right. And as he fixes up his tie in the mirror above his bedside light, he's scared as hair. But up the doorstep he trots, takes a breath and gives a knock, and she sprints to the door. And he says, hey me what it means, 'cause I don't know. Hey, Betty, things heal in time. Remember one thing and don't forget, tonight you're mine. Romantic, I mean the perfect date. I mean everything about it was spontaneously arranged. Had me by the heart before I even knew her name, but now I know they call her Betty. Well, the feeling still remains. I thought she'd give me the slip, now she's giving me ticks. She's looking even more amazing, now she's candlelit. Food sells sick, so we order out bitch. She goes from some fancy fishy dish, I stick to steak and chips, and the wine flows, but God knows. Control what I drink, so can control what I think. So when that liquor gets inside of me, I swear it's disastrous. It's inside of me, I never want to show this princess. She says, I don't want to be alone. Well, that'll never happen, girl. And I don't want you to abuse me. Well, I won't, well, I won't, well, I won't. See, the moment I met you, I started changing my ways. I started looking in the future and started acting my age. It's your mind and your heart that's got me feeling this way. Feeling afraid, lost in the fray. Simply amazed, I simply have to say, hey, Betty, look in my eyes, so I can look at your sparkling in that candlelight. Hey, Betty, things heal in time, but remember one thing and don't forget, tonight you're mine. As the cabbie settles up, you look at her and her eyes are shut, 'cause she's scared as hell. So you take her by the hand, 'cause you know how to be a gentleman, and you walk her to the door. And you say, hey, Betty, here's a kiss. Don't know if you want it, but I can't resist. Hey, Betty, things heal in time. Remember one thing and don't forget, tonight you're mine.
That was sensational. What a great performer. And that's Tim Knowles. Tim Knowles, and that's Hey Betty. Now, you've given me a CD. Is this like a new single of yours, or...?
It is, yes. It's one of the songs on there had to be changed to be radio friendly, but yeah, it is...
Were you naughty, were you?
I was, just in one line, yeah.
That was sensational. Great stuff. Tim, I've got to ask you, just before we say goodbye, you went to the UK, and obviously your career was progressing in the UK. Why did you choose to go to the UK in the first place?
I think it was, looking back, I mean, I was very young when I first went, but I think it was, for me, it was a way of sort of sparking some excitement and getting things happening. I think I felt very bogged down in Australia. Originally, I felt like I wasn't doing anything special or spontaneous enough to sort of start a rock star career. So I think to answer your question, it was just about doing something crazy and sort of really sparking off my life.
And there was a good community, a music community in England that helped you nurture yourself? There was.
I mean, I was drawn to it. It took a long time. I lived in a lot of, I'll say, interesting places where there wasn't a lot of sort of art or creativity, not the kind that I'm involved in anyway. And so a lot of those kind of rougher areas and things I lived in actually helped my songwriting and helped all that. But then it was a matter of sort of just being drawn to the right people. And
we had Sting once made the comment that it's only through hard times that his music really works, and when he's happy, his music, he says, is crap.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more, actually.
Agree. Tim Knowles, thank you so much for joining us. It's been great to speak to you.
Thank you.
And I've got to ask you, just finally, did he pay them ransom? Did he go and give them the jewellery?
No, funnily enough, they never got it.
They never got it?
No.
What happened?
Well, it was foiled by somebody calling the police, actually. So somebody up on a balcony was our guardian angel, I guess.
Wow, fantastic.
Radio Australia.